We're coming to you live from our studios here in Kukumlemle, also on DSTV channel 421 and other digital platforms, also online on myjoyonline.com. Thanks for joining me on the polls. Now, is Gyakye Quayson still going to fight? Well, this afternoon, the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, has ruled that the Electoral Commission was wrong to have even allowed Mr. Quayson to run as a parliamentary candidate in Assin North in the first place. And he did that on the ticket of the opposition NDC. Now, the court wants Parliament to expunge his name from its records. It means he will no longer be recognized as having ever been a member of Parliament. This afternoon, we break down the complex issues surrounding this case. We'll also hear from the NDC and the NPP. First, though, let's speak to court correspondent Joseph Akable, who's followed this case since it started. Joseph, let's start by running us through exactly how this case started, how it traveled through the various courts, finally culminating in this verdict.
In fact, it's been a matter that has been in the court for a while now, but it all started sometime in October of 2020 when Gyakye Quayson filed his nomination or picked up nomination forms from the Electoral Commission to contest as NDC parliamentary candidate for Assin North. We know that a petition was sent to the Electoral Commission at that stage. The Electoral Commission cleared him to contest the 2020 polls. Later on, just before the election, after the election was conducted, we know he emerged victorious in that particular election when he beat the MPP's candidate to become the Member of Parliament. Just before the swearing-in was done, we know the swearing-in was on January 7. The lawyers for Michael Ankoman Imfa, who describes himself as a constituent of Assin North, initiated steps to have him injuncted from being sworn in as a Member of Parliament. You recall that on January 7, 2021, during the swearing-in, the Parliament's attention was drawn to that particular injunction that had been obtained from the court. And the minority side, at that time, the NDC side, because there was no majority and minority at that point in time, took the view that they will allow him to participate in the voting of the Speaker because if there are any consequences, he's going to bear the consequence as an individual. And so that disrupted Parliament a bit, but eventually he was allowed to participate in that voting for the Speaker. Right after that particular process, we know that in July 2021, a High Court at Cape Coast ruled that he was not qualified to contest the polls when it came to the conclusion that he did not renounce his citizenship at the time of filing a nomination form to contest the parliamentary polls. We know that his lawyers had argued that he had put in the process and that because of the COVID-19 and the issues surrounding that, he didn't get the certificate. So that had been the argument all throughout, but the High Court had disagreed with that. Then they proceeded to take the matter to the Court of Appeal. At a point in time, the Court of Appeal struck out the matter and delisted it. The lawyers went all the way to the Supreme Court to try and get it relisted. They lost on all those matters. Then came that application that was taken to the Supreme Court in January of 2022. That was an application again by lawyers for Michael Ankoman Imfa, simply asking the Supreme Court to declare that upon a true and proper interpretation of Article 94(2)(a) of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana, Gyakye Quayson, at the time of filing his nomination form in October of 2020, was not qualified to contest as a Member of Parliament. This constitutional provision simply says that a person shall not be qualified to be a Member of Parliament if he owes allegiance to another country other than Ghana. And so their argument was that once his renunciation certificate had not come in at the time he filed to contest, then it meant that he was not eligible to contest. Even before the Supreme Court dealt with the substantive matter, they filed an application for injunction, saying to the Supreme Court that even before you give your final judgment, we think that every single day that he stays in Parliament, the Constitution is breached, and that you are the constitutional court, you are the highest court of the land, you cannot allow a breach to happen. And that was in April of 2022. The Supreme Court, by a majority 5-2 decision, we knew that Justices Amegacha and Agnes Doji, who has now retired and was replaced on this particular panel, had dissented. But the 5-member panel, the majority took the view that he should be restrained from performing functions as a Member of Parliament. And so in actual sense, since April 2022, Assin North have been without a Member of Parliament because he was barred from attending Parliament, presenting himself or holding himself out as member of Parliament. The court at that time assured that it was going to expeditiously deal with the matter, but we know that the case has been outstanding from April 2022 till today that we are speaking, May 17, 2023, when the Supreme Court has delivered its final judgment on this particular matter, Benes.
Joseph, let's zero in on events in court today. How exactly did it transpire, and what was the reaction of both sides to the decision by the Supreme Court? In
fact, Justice John Doche, the presiding judge for this particular matter, the incoming or the newly nominated Chief Justice, Justice Tokonisis on this panel, the court, in a unanimous 7-0 decision, made the following conclusion. The first was that he was not eligible to contest the post, and as a result, his election was null and void and of no effect. The court also concluded that the Electoral Commission acted unconstitutionally in allowing him to contest the post without seeing his renunciation certificate. The court therefore also proceeded to conclude that his swearing-in that was carried out by Parliament was also null and void and of no effect, and then proceeded to issue the directive to Parliament asking that his name is expunged from its records. And so that was the conclusion that Justice Jones Doche read. Lawyers for James Gyakye Quayson, led by Chachuchikata in open court, simply stated that as the court pleases. But afterwards, we know that they were locked in a meeting, and we understand there are even subsequent meetings that will be taking place to decide the next line of action. But for lawyers for Michael and Kuman Infan, led by Frank Davis, this is a good decision, and they expect that as a matter of natural consequences, steps should be afoot for by-election to take place in Assin North.
And Joseph, as we speak, we haven't heard anything from the Electoral Commission, have we?
No, but the Commission's lawyers were actually in court represented by Seth Amankwa, who represented the Commission in this particular matter. And so the Commission, as we are expected to know, are much aware of this decision. But as we've seen happen in time past, the procedure is that the Speaker of Parliament directs the clerk to write to the Electoral Commission, informing them of a vacancy, and then the processes take place for the EC announces the by-election. But there a lot can happen in between now, because we know that previously when attempts were made to serve the court order on Parliament, and the Speaker of Parliament had cause to comment on it, he said he was not going to declare the seat vacant because there were pending legal processes involved in this particular matter. We do not know whether between now and whenever Parliament reconvenes, whether lawyers for James Gyakye Quayson will be filing perhaps for a review, and whether when the Speaker of Parliament is seized with this particular matter, it will mean that he may take the view again that because of the review that has been filed, once the Supreme Court delivers its judgment, the only option is for a review. And that is done, it will mean that maybe the Speaker will take the view again that because of the pending process, he may not proceed to declare the seat vacant. But we know that there's also a pending criminal case, independent of what is happening at the Constitutional Court, which has been brought to a finality today, against James Gyakye Quayson, where he's been accused of committing forgery and perjury in the form that he signed, the declaration, the statutory declaration that he signed in terms of submitting his nomination form to say that he did not owe any allegiance to any other country.
And Joseph, what is the status of that case?
It's actually at the very initial levels where witnesses are now just about coming in to begin to give their testimony. And so there were a number of initial applications that came in that went all the way up to the Supreme Court and then back again. So that is how come that case has not progressed very much.
Okay, so for those who are asking questions, especially on social media, because we know what has happened in times past with persons who were found to have dual citizenship and holding office as members of Parliament, that meant they served a jail term. So for those of you who may not be following the issues keenly, Joseph has just explained the criminal matter is still in the initial stages. This is a civil case which the Supreme Court has ruled over. Let me now bring in Abraham Amaliba. He is a member of the NDC's legal team. James Gyakye Quayson belongs to that party and was in Parliament on the ticket of that party. Mr. Amaliba, good afternoon to you. How is the party taking this decision?
Well, it appears people are running ahead of time. This matter, I have indicated to the media already that this matter is not conclusive. It's not yet ended. There's a possibility of a review.
Right.
And if there's a review, the orders of the court will not apply until the review is heard.
Is there going to be a review? We understand there's been a meeting since the verdict was delivered a couple of hours ago. We understand lawyers of Mr. Gyakye Quayson have been locked up in a meeting. Are you aware if the decision is to review?
I am unaware of such a meeting because I am the Director of Legal Affairs. This is going on. I'm unaware of it, but I can only tell you what the law allows. So the law allows for a review, and if that decision is taken to go for a review, we haven't seen the end of it, as your reporter is seeking to put across. Apart from that, I have a challenge why the Supreme Court should take up this matter, because as we are all aware, parliamentary petitions, if you are challenging the eligibility of a parliamentary candidate, it ends at the Court of Appeal. So we will take the judgment, look at it, and then we'll be in a better position to respond. But for now, it is clear that we haven't seen the end of the matter yet.
Mr. Maliba, are you questioning the capacity of the Supreme Court to sit over this matter?
I am saying that, yes, that as we are aware, the law is clear. Parliamentary petitions end at the Court of Appeal. So I want to know, and that's what I'm saying, that I want to see the judgment. I want to know how the Supreme Court took charge of it. And so that's my point. So that's what I can say now.
Okay, so you say that you're not aware of a meeting that's happening with Mr. Gyakye Quayson's lawyers, but as a party, since the news broke of the Supreme Court's verdict, what has happened after that? Have there been any meetings scheduled?
Officers are on their way to Kubewu.
Okay.
Officers have not met yet. The legal team has not met yet. This just took place some 3 hours ago, isn't it? So you shouldn't expect that people were already sitting at the round table waiting for the judgment. So by close of day, we will know the way forward.
Right. I appreciate your time here this afternoon. Abraham Amaliba is Director of Legal Affairs for the NDC, and he's not able to tell us emphatically if there will be a review of the decision by the Supreme Court, but he did spell out the fact that the law permits for that to happen. I was hoping to get some concrete answers, but he says it's early days yet, and so the party will be meeting and will give us a decision subsequently. Well, we will be bringing you more on this. Hopefully, we're hoping to get some more reactions on this developing story.